Suddenly, the fairy tale didn't collapse overnight. It cracked slowly, quietly, almost politely at first. It began the way royal fairy tales always do, with a glowing pregnancy announcement, carefully photographed, perfectly timed, and emotionally choreographed for maximum effect. Meghan Markle, hand resting gently on her belly, standing in just the right light, wearing just the right expression. Calm, serene, modern, powerful. The image of a woman stepping into motherhood on her own terms. And for a moment, just a moment, the world applauded. The palace got exactly what it wanted. Praise, adoration, smiles, congratulations pouring in from every corner. Meghan glowing, graceful, seemingly floating through pregnancy like it was effortless. A modern royal fairy tale wrapped in Instagram aesthetics and press releases. But then something felt off. Not loud at first, just uneasy. As the weeks passed, people started noticing things they weren't supposed to notice. The kind of things you only catch when you're paying close attention. The baby bump. That bump became the center of whispers. One day it looked round, firm, undeniably present. The next day it appeared smaller, softer, almost deflated. Royal watchers started comparing photos, screenshots, side-by-side images from different appearances, and the differences weren't subtle, they were jarring, alarming, impossible to ignore. In some moments, Meghan moved like a woman deep into her third trimester, hands cradling her stomach protectively, posture careful, deliberate. In others, she climbed stairs with shocking ease, twisting, pivoting, bending in ways that made women who'd actually been pregnant stop and stare at their screens in disbelief. The excuses came fast. Camera angles, clothing, posture, lighting, but the explanations didn't land. They felt thin, weak, like someone desperately trying to patch cracks that were already spreading. Then came the home birth narrative. A perfect story. Frogmore Cottage. Natural, private, peaceful. Meghan rejecting rigid royal tradition in favor of mindful modern motherhood. It fit the brand. It fit the image. It fit the story she wanted the world to believe. And people believed it until May 6, 2019. Because suddenly, the story changed. Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor wasn't born at Frogmore Cottage. He was born at the Portland Hospital in London. A hospital birth alone wasn't shocking, but the silence surrounding the change was. No explanation, no medical reason, no acknowledgement that the story had ever been different, just silence. And that silence was deafening. The public felt something snap. The carefully managed narrative, the one they'd been invited to emotionally invest in, vanished without warning. Why the sudden shift? What happened behind closed doors? Why wasn't anyone saying anything? That unanswered silence poured gasoline on suspicion. People started digging. Harder, deeper. The bump. The timeline. The behavior. The missing transparency. And suddenly, those earlier inconsistencies didn't seem harmless anymore. They started looking deliberate. Then Piers Morgan stepped in. And when he did, he didn't whisper. He came armed. Documents, schedules, alleged internal logs, timelines he claimed didn't match the official story. And he wasn't asking gentle questions, he was accusing, suggesting that what the public had been shown wasn't just curated, it was staged. According to Morgan, the paperwork told a very different story. Scheduling notes allegedly showed Meghan attending events across London on days she was supposedly resting. Hospital appointments logged on days she was photographed, smiling and waving at crowds. And then, the most explosive claim of all, the day Archie was supposedly born. While the official narrative painted a discreet hospital arrival, the documents Morgan referenced placed Meghan somewhere else entirely. The implications were nuclear. Was the pregnancy real, or was it managed? The internet erupted, forums lit up, comparison videos flooded timelines, every movement, every outfit, every facial expression dissected. The phrase Meghan Markle exposed trended worldwide. And through it all, no response. No medical records, no clarification, no statement from Meghan, no palace intervention, nothing. That silence didn't calm the storm, it confirmed it in the minds of critics. Then came the word nobody wanted to say out loud at first: surrogacy. What had once been dismissed as wild conspiracy theories suddenly didn't sound so impossible possible. As inconsistencies stacked higher and higher, people began asking the unthinkable question, what if Meghan was never pregnant at all? The speculation grew louder when people compared Meghan's approach to pregnancy with Catherine, Princess of Wales. Catherine had stepped outside the hospital hours after giving birth, 3 times, smiling, exhausted, real. Meghan delayed Archie's public appearance for 2 full days, unveiling him in a controlled Windsor Castle photo shoot. Supporters called it privacy, critics called it control. Then the Oprah interview resurfaced, once hailed as raw truth, now re-examined under a harsher lens. Piers Morgan picked it apart frame by frame. The pauses, the tears, the delivery. He claimed it felt rehearsed, performed, emotional manipulation, not vulnerability. And then came another bombshell. Morgan alleged multiple versions of Archie's birth announcement had been pre-written. Different details, different outcomes, drafts prepared before the birth even happened. To him, this wasn't coincidence. It was optics, strategy, image management. He argued Meghan used pregnancy as armor, as protection. Any criticism became an attack on a pregnant woman. Any question was framed as misogyny. Motherhood became a shield. And suddenly, the pattern made sense. The silence, the inconsistencies, the narrative control, the refusal to clarify. But the most shocking part wasn't even Meghan. It was the palace. An institution known for ruthless information control did nothing, said nothing, corrected nothing. And that silence wasn't neutral, it was explosive. Was the palace protecting her, trapped by their own narrative, or quietly letting it all unravel? Some believed they were shielding Meghan during a vulnerable time. Others believed they knew the truth and couldn't expose it. And some believed, chillingly, that they wanted her gone. Whatever the reason, the silence destroyed trust. The fallout was brutal. Public confidence in the monarchy took a hit. Online warfare erupted between supporters and critics. And the surrogacy rumors triggered deeply personal, often ugly attacks against Meghan. Even former defenders began to waver. Because at some point, questions demand answers. And none came. In the end, this controversy became a warning about over-curated narratives, about secrecy, about what happens when image replaces truth. Whether Meghan deliberately deceived the public or became trapped inside her own carefully constructed story may never be proven. But the damage was done. The fairy tale didn't just end. It imploded. And the echo of that explosion still lingers in the monarchy, in the media, and in the minds of a public that learned just how fragile royal narratives really are. And even now, long after the palace gates slammed shut behind Harry and Meghan, the questions refuse to die. They linger like smoke after a fire, thick, uncomfortable, impossible to wave away. Because here's the thing no one can ignore anymore. If everything was innocent, if nothing was hidden, if this was all just misunderstanding and cruel gossip, why did no one ever clean it up? One press release, one calm explanation, one medical confirmation. That's all it would have taken to shut everything down. But instead, there was nothing. And silence in royal scandals is never empty. It's deliberate. People started connecting dots they were never meant to see. Staff whispers, sudden resignations, conflicting timelines that never quite aligned. Even seasoned royal reporters, the ones who usually protect the institution, began hedging their words, choosing phrases carefully, refusing to say what they clearly didn't want to say out loud. But behind the scenes, insiders hinted that this wasn't just about pregnancy anymore. It was about trust, about control, about a growing realization inside palace walls that the narrative had slipped out of their hands. And once that happens, panic sets in. Because the monarchy survives on one thing above all else: credibility. Not love, not popularity, credibility. And once the public starts believing they're being managed instead of told the truth, the damage spreads fast. That's why this story never stayed contained to Meghan alone. It bled into everything. Suddenly, past allegations resurfaced with new intensity. Claims about staff mistreatment, bullying accusations that had once been brushed aside now re-examined under a harsher light. People began asking whether the same obsession with image that allegedly surrounded the pregnancy also shaped every other public moment. Was everything everything a performance? Even moments that were once sacred, tears, vulnerability, motherhood, now felt transactional to critics. Weaponized for sympathy, deployed strategically when pressure mounted. And that realization made people angry because motherhood, to many, isn't branding. It's raw, it's painful, it's messy. And the idea that it could be used as a shield against accountability struck a nerve that cut deep, especially among women who had actually lived through pregnancy, complications, miscarriages, and postpartum trauma. The backlash intensified. Online debates turned vicious. Supporters accused critics of cruelty and misogyny. Critics accused supporters of blind loyalty. The truth, whatever it was, drowned under emotion, ideology, and rage. And yet, the central question still stood untouched. Why didn't the palace act? Royal historians pointed out how quickly the institution had moved in past crises. Statements issued within hours, narratives corrected before rumors could breathe. But here, nothing. Some whispered that legal landmines prevented clarification. Others believed the palace knew any explanation would only raise more questions. And a darker theory persisted that silence was safer than truth, because truth, once spoken, can't be retracted. By the time Harry and Meghan left royal life entirely, this controversy had already etched itself into public memory. It followed them across the Atlantic. It shadowed interviews, documentaries, podcasts. Every emotional confession was met with skepticism. Every accusation against the palace was weighed against unanswered questions from before. Trust, once cracked, never fully heals. Even now, years later, this story resurfaces whenever credibility is discussed, whenever transparency is demanded, whenever image and reality clash. And that's the real legacy of this scandal. Not whether a bump shifted, not where a birth took place, not even whether deception occurred, but the fact that millions of people no longer know what or who to believe. The monarchy emerged weakened, the media emerged divided, and Meghan Markle emerged permanently polarizing, a woman some still see as victim, others as architect, and many as both. The fairy tale didn't just fall apart, it taught the world a brutal lesson. When narratives are curated too perfectly, people eventually start looking for what's being hidden behind the curtain. And once they do, there is no putting the story back together again. Back together again. Back together again.